gentlemen, and welcome once again. I must conserve every bit of strength that I can. But we have a wonderful show for you tonight. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again.
Welcome back to Cannabis Again with Jason Wilcox. This is June 8th, 2015, and the kickoff of our live test finally here in studio. We've been testing and getting the equipment, getting things ready to go, and ready to start our live show. And we're looking forward to doing that. And I wanted to bring this live right away, just so people can see what we need to go through when we're trying to dial in shows like this. And tonight, as a guest for the test show, is actually one of our own, Caleb McMillan.
Hello, thank you for having me. That was a cool intro.
That was a cool intro. Yeah, that's our new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Caleb, you've done a lot of writing now. Now, Caleb's been done some exclusive pieces for CinC. He's a staff writer for Cannabis in Canada, and has done some to your reporting on allot. Now, you've done some amazing reporting on allot. Maybe tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, there was, I sat in court all day and watched John Conroy and everyone else in the Crown argue. And it was actually a lot of fun watching professional lawyers debate these things, facts and evidence, as opposed to watching, election campaigns where people just, say what sounds nice rather than what's actually, rational and stuff. Even though, that's what I like about court, actually. Even though when the Crown went up, it was like, oh, this is stupid. At the end of the day, just how they present their argument is like, you almost feel like Stockholm Syndrome at the end of a full day of listening to the court's argument. It's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we should get rid of gardens. And it's like, no, wait, no. It sounds very logical, but then it's like, oh wait, no, there's no actual facts to support what they're saying.
Well, this is kind of, I'm going to now switch gears here a little bit over, because I recently did an open letter, as we know, to Rona Ambrose on CinC.
That was great.
And in that, really, my thing was that she was outraged at 9 superior judges or whatever it was that made this decision. Who is she, and what is her qualifications to be outraged at the Supreme Court of Canada, who made a decision in favor of medical patients in a medical marijuana program that's existed since 2001?
Exactly, yeah.
There's my little rant. So what's your take on Rona's kind of outrage to the federal government of Canada?
I think it's actually...
Or sorry, to the Supreme Court of Canada.
The whole concept is stupid. It's ridiculous. Like it's a totally different branch of government, where like she's kind of, you're supposed to just kind of respect that decision. I kind of understand where they're coming from, where like the courts are legislating into like the parliament sphere, and it's a fun debate whether what the charter means now that it's here, and a constitutional challenge like this.
And Rona, the charter, the courts, Section 7, liberty, rights to freedom. Rona.
Well, that's
listen.
The thing. Yeah, I, at the end of the day, the way I see it is like, yeah, we're by default free, and the government, when they impose a policy like that infringes on our liberty, they get like the burden of proof is on them. They have to. So yeah, with like Smith and hopefully with Allard, the courts will rule in favor of a liberty. And the government, instead of just respecting the courts as nice balance and separation of powers, and it's supposed to be a free and democratic society, the government will just do what third world dictatorships tend to do. Is just, if they could, they would just ignore the Supreme Court and be like, well, whatever, we're gonna do what the fuck we want.
If we had our viewers here online, if this was a live show where we had more people on that were listening and interacting with us, this would be a yes. This would be a very hot topic, because people are jumping all over this because of the issue of outrage. I would remind people, the patients of Canada put the government of the patients of Canada put the federal government of Canada on trial. We restrained them with an injunction on trial. We sued them for $40 million plus, in a privacy breach. This is all stuff that is a result of the MMPR. Then what does R versus Smith do in the Supreme Court of Canada? The MMPR is unconstitutional. Right out of the gate. So why do I go back to target you, Rona? Because you were the one that allowed it to happen on your watch. You came in when it was phased out. You came in when the MMAR was being phased out. I'm still upset about this, because I think about how many patients fought and clawed to raise $250,000 to fight Allard. Costed Canadians $1 million plus. And now we're looking at appeals, in the case of a victory. Again, I'm speculating a victory because the government failed to provide proof of fire, mold, or organized crime. Therefore, stripping me or any other medical patient who grows their own cannabis of the right to autonomy cannot apply in Canada. And I believe that the courts will continue to uphold, just like they did in R versus Smith, they'll do the same in Allard. Now, on that note, let's talk a little bit about the regulation of dispensaries.
Regulation, the Vancouver and Victoria and
Well, here's
and Calgary too. Apparently,
Thank you.
now. Yeah, that's in the news.
Well,
But
go ahead,
that's
shoot
not
on
a
that one.
That's not a real dispensary. That what's in Calgary is one of those LP spots. So there's no cannabis on site.
Right.
It's really more of like a medical head shop where you can buy vaporizers, and T-shirts maybe.
That's why I laughed. Like, again, I've been telling our viewers, and I've been saying, watch out for the monopoly. They realize they lost in Allard. They're not going to get the gardens. But of course, they're going to come after that. So when they say, we're going to regulate dispensaries, no, they're not. They're going to insert medical clinics. The LP model, they're the ones doing this. They're templating it across the country.
Yeah,
How can you regulate dispensaries in Calgary when there are no goddamn dispensaries to regulate? You can't regulate this stuff.
Yeah, it's
So-
like a preemptive thing. What
It is.
doing.
They're
Yeah.
mapping. And now let's get into this. A lot of people don't know this. Now, I reported it last year on this. Caleb did some great work and doing some background work on the LP clinic that first opened in St. Catharines.
Yeah.
And
It's
he
the
was
same
so
deal.
bold. What
Yeah.
did he tell us? Go ahead, fill us in.
So what? Yeah, pretty much what it is. It's a clinic where you go and they're supposed to help you navigate through the MMPR because they have different strains and how much they cost, which are apparently always updating and changing, and from the different LPs you can go to. So pretty much, it's kind of like what you would expect from a dispensary if you went in there asking questions about what you want out of your medicine and product. And there's a doctor. I think you told me there was a doctor. That was a few months ago. It was a number of months ago now that I talked to him. But either there was definitely a doctor involved. That was sometimes in the clinic.
Well,
I'm pretty sure.
that's the loophole, guys.
But there was no cannabis on site. That's key. You're still getting it from the LP who's mailing it to you.
Exactly.
Or they can mail it to the doctor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that is what people have to understand. When we're talking about LP clinics and we're talking about regulating dispensaries, we also have to look at what's the loophole in the MMPR. Put a doctor in your clinic or in your dispensary and buy the membership. One key thing, my friends, where's the legal supply? And I can tell you now, as proposed to the city of Vancouver was a lie, as proposed to the city of Victoria was a lie. The legal supply does not come from the patients protected under the Allard injunction from the MMAR former, nor is it from patients that may have a right in the future. We have never been allowed to sell our weed. And the licensed producers, in my own opinion, already know. They already know that they are the sole legal supply. So when all the regulations are done and all their templates are done, there will be lots of clinics, there will be access, but they will be LP access, in my own opinion. But time tells all truths.
It would make sense because usually regulations, even in the best of intentions, they end up being regulatory capture by those with the actual funds to buy up the regulations and the regulators.
Well, for my viewers, my viewers have been watching me rant. I'm not going to be ranting no more. I'm happier now. I'm out there defending medical patients like I used to do, and that's what's a lot of fun to me. Not having to be worried about so much ifs or ands or buts. We've proven, demonstrated, and funded Allard. It was a $250,000 engagement. It's been funded. Yeah, there's appeals. Yeah, there's additional costs that need to be covered. And there's lots of people doing some great fundraising now in Allard. And we appreciate that. At the end of the day, we go back to R versus Smith. It's a Section 7, Section 1 case. In order to pass the Section 7 test, to get to Section 1, you have to prove the right to liberty is being infringed. The Supreme Court of Canada said the right to liberty is being infringed in R versus Smith. And that, to us, is a good sign in relation of liberty when a patient has to face mandatory minimums if they choose to keep growing their medicine, exercising their right to autonomy with undue arbitrary restrictions such as fire, mold, and organized lies.
I agree. I think. Sorry, I tuned out for some
I
reason. forgot that we're live.
went into one of my tirades. You know that,
Yeah,
Caleb.
after you said that you weren't. I think that's how that rant started, was that you said you were done, and then so that was the last time.
Yeah. I'm going to give this is a live show. See, this is the
was
thing.
the test.
This is the
was
test live
That's
show.
why
So
I was.
I mean, if there was
justified in
people
tuning out
online
for a
right now
while.
asking us questions, I would engage the audience. It's just we're being kind of being very open, but this is what CNC does. I mean, okay. What else did you break? You broke how much it
The allot
costed.
numbers.
You broke
Yeah.
how much it costed in allot. So let's talk about that, because that was Freedom of Information Act through Cannabis in Canada, and we tagged them, and you bagged them with the article.
Yeah, so that was over $1 million they spent. So
Over $1 million fighting us. That's
yeah,
what the
it's
government,
still-
Canadian
still
taxpayers.
ongoing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much to say about that other than that's persistence trying to get those numbers paid off. And I'm not going to reveal my secrets, or everybody will be getting an Access to Information Act. And
That's true.
next thing you know, everybody will know everything about what the government's doing.
Yeah.
Which,
Well,
wait, that might be a
reminds
good thing.
that brings me up to the next part. Now, CNC has been since last year. Chad and I, my co-host, who's not here tonight, unfortunately, he's caught out in the rain doing some stuff, and he's not here for the test. But that's all good. Him and I broke a story about the 1 ton of weed that was seized by the RCMP in Kamloops, and then swept under the rug.
Yeah.
After the RCMP said it contravened sections 262 and 261 of the MMPR. How could you possibly sweep a ton of weed under the rug when you said it breached the CDSA and the MMPR? And we're talking flower, illegal weed. And when we tried to get the information, what happened, Caleb?
Are we allowed to go into that? I'm good to tell you what they sent me.
Don't tell them who we got the information. Well, what were we told?
Well, I was told that the investigation is still ongoing.
So all of our efforts, which means everything within our legal power to explore what the particulars are of that pound, of that ton, of weed, of a lot of dried flower. Apparently, we want the particulars so we know whether it involves particular other issues that we're going to continue. I don't want to get into language right now because of legal reasons. But as we continue to explore, and I can guarantee you, other people, other attorneys have already told me they haven't forgot either. So there's a lot going on about that issue. You can't just sweep a ton of weed under the rug and act like it didn't happen when there's a monopoly and a war going on in this country over the supply and distribution of cannabis. And I'm going to continue to fight for a free and fair market no matter what it takes. And I'll continue to help patients no matter what it takes. You know, take over our dispensaries, we'll go underground. You know, you want a price war, we'll have one. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for Canada.
It is unfortunate. I think it's kind of ironic too, because you think Stephen Harper was supposed to be the embodiment of Western alienation. He was going to go to Ottawa and, in a way, kind of fix Canada from kind of the central mentality of what Ontario and Quebec had been doing for so long.
Yeah.
That's the idea, at least. But once he was there, he turned in like the rest of them, and now he's doing to BC's cannabis farms what Trudeau was kind of doing with Alberta's oil sands back, like the old Trudeau back in the 70s. You know, Trudeau tried to take over the energy. He tried to take what was Alberta's powerhouse economy and be like, oh no, Ottawa is going to take over this now. We're going to reap all the benefits and pick the producers. And Alberta was rightfully annoyed, and that's, you know, that annoyance eventually led to a Stephen Harper prime minister, which is ironic that he is now doing that to the BC economy with cannabis. He's trying to be like, Ottawa. No, don't worry about Ottawa's going to be in charge, and we're going to pick the licensed producers. And it's like, no. There's already a market here. Like, just step off, buddy.
Yeah, and one of the other things too, people need to remember this. What did Harper do when he first came into office? He cut all research into cannabis fund or all funding for cannabis research, and then they claim we don't know enough about medical cannabis. Well, Harper, it's because you pulled the damn funding. Rona, it's because you pulled the damn funding. Well, you claim no medical value. I would also remind you from the 1800s to 1942, cannabis was in pharmacopoeia. You could get it prescribed by a doctor, go to a pharmacy. So how can you not say it's medical? Sorry, I'm ranting again.
Yeah, I know, but talking about being an allard and sitting in the courtroom, and like the Crown brought in so many witnesses of other medical marijuana regimes. Like they were showing, their evidence was that there was a medical benefit to cannabis. It's just that it should be, you know, done by licensed producers and control. So it's like what they're arguing in court is totally different from what they're telling the public, and it's just like, oh, jeez.
well, this is, and that goes back to my issue with Rona and the whole thing is that they stood up with the fire chiefs, with the police, and you lied. You lied to the Canadian people. You costed them $1 million, and then you lied some more.
Yeah,
and then
they do
recently,
nothing but lie.
you said you're outraged. What about the fucking 41,000 patients that you put through there? Excuse my language to my listeners, but my God, what did you do to the patients of Canada on your watch? You need to be accountable. You're the health minister accountable to Canada. I'm sorry, but that's, this is going to be a live test. It's going to be out on the air, and I want my viewers to know where I stand. Going into the live shows, these are my positions.
It is a passionate, because you think of like any Yahoo can go online and look with their own eyes and see that there are like little children who are getting better with cannabis oil. It's not a conspiracy. It's not like this is actually happening. Doctors are recognizing it. That's
Dr.
why you're
Sanjay
seeing.
Gupta.
That's why you're seeing more clinical research studies being done, because they're like, okay, let's do this the mainstream way and let's get this. And so yeah, for her to have this position, and it's really, she's a lapdog. Like, where this is coming from. There's just an ideology up there.
Well, it's the whole no medical value, and that's because Canada holds there's no medical value because freaking America took it out in 1942. I can't remember when Canada took it out, but they banned it, started reefer madness, because in my own opinion, it would have impacted the pharmacopoeia industry or the pharmacology industry, which has boomed. How many of us have been put on pills in our life? They're making a ton of money off that. Where cannabis, in my own case, being 22 years HIV positive, cannabis has saved my life and extended my life because I don't take all the pills for anti-nausea, pain, inflammation, etc. I don't need to get into all my personal stuff. But when it comes to saying it's not medical, our history books suggest opposite. Present day anecdotal evidence suggests the opposite. And Rona, from your Edmonton small politics background and very limited time in office, you know shit about cannabis and shouldn't be talking about it. I'm sorry again for my language, but this is a very touchy issue that has affected thousands of medical patients' lives who choose to use cannabis, whether you like it or not, Rona. This is my question to you, to all of the government officials. Where does the answer lie? Where does the right lie? With the right to liberty? With the courts? With the doctor? Or with me? You can answer me that question, then I'll know where I really stand in this country. Because right now I got a federal license that says I'm legal, a federal injunction, and a government that says they don't want it. And even after the courts are speaking, even after a trial is done, Rona, you're still outraged. I'm not going to keep going, dude, because I can just rant about this for hours because of the people who've been hurt as a result of your policy that you allowed on your watch. Regardless of who she is, regardless of what happened, she allowed this.
Yeah, it's surprising. You asking like who's at fault or who's to blame or who to point the finger at, and I wonder like at some point somewhere in Health Canada who can just disobey orders. It's somewhere in there, or is anyone at the federal level of Health Canada even necessary?
Where can we actually? I mean, I'd like to see the money trail. I'm speculating here and drawing assertions. By no means there's any proof of that, but like with the Liberal Party, we know Chuck Riffshe made $1 million off tweed.
Yeah,
there's a monopoly.
There's another one. There's another Liberal MP who has an LP.
That's what I'm saying. We made
somewhere here in BC.
So I've seen some posts on Facebook jokingly saying, well, maybe the R versus Smith case impacted, she's outraged because it might impact her stock market more than anything else. But I'm really wondering, why would you be outraged with so many judges agreeing with the law at the highest court, from the low all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada, and you're actually outraged? I'm done with that spew. Let's talk about something else. You pick a topic here, Caleb. We cover so much. We cover so much here at Cannabis in Canada.
I suppose we can talk about regulation, the dispensary regulation in Vancouver, and that kind of gets back to what you were saying, like pointing the finger at somebody, because in Vancouver, it feels like cannabis is legal for the most part because of all the dispensaries and everything, and so it kind of gets. Okay, I'm going to two different areas here, but the one area is that the dispensary model, to regulate it, you can be a regulation business. There are like some of the issues the city brings up about being certain like 300 meters apart and being away from schools or like sensitive areas. A lot of those are made up problems. That's not an issue. There's no way they could objectively know. They keep saying good practice. There's no way they could objectively know that the dispensary, once it's here, there shouldn't be one within 300 meters, right? Like that's something consumers decide just by buying or not buying. Like,
and they're saying that they base that off Seattle.
Yeah, I know that's the thing. Okay, we base it off of other states, other central plans. Okay, well,
another country.
Yeah,
actually.
Another country. Let's maybe we should base our textile industry off of what the Soviet Union was doing. Exactly. Oh no, it didn't work because we know central planning doesn't work. We've been through the 20th century. We don't have to do this again. Yeah. So yeah, the regulation in Vancouver, and this doesn't just the dispensaries. This could be everything, but let's start with dispensaries since there is no regulation. Is that let businesses provide regulation. Patients and consumers want dispensaries to like be fair and not rip people off, and if there's any complaints to be lodged, they want a body to go to. Dispensaries themselves, they're open to regulation. They want to be. They want to be legit.
Free and fair regulation.
Free and fair. Like, yeah, they want to be legit, be seen as, because that's the other thing. The other business community, they're angry that this particular retail sector doesn't have to be regulated. So the solution isn't to regulate everybody. The solution isn't to regulate dispensaries. It's to stop regulating everybody, and kind of let a market of regulation sprout up, because. You need regulation. It's an important thing in a market economy. But when you have the government provide regulation, what are you essentially you're arguing? It's a monopoly of force deciding, what the regulations are. A body of civil servants that can't objectively know in any way how best to allocate resources or capital or investment, because consumers haven't voluntarily given the money. They've been forced to through taxes, and there's no competition to gauge whether resources should be used in this way or that way. So I don't know. Cannabis is a gateway drug to liberty, man. You start with cannabis and you end up with liberty.
Yeah, and that's one of my other things is I recently wrote an article on addiction. And it's interesting they're finding now that certain phytocannabinoids, which comes from the plant, and when we have cannabis, actually work in anti-addiction properties, such as CBD, because it bypasses the CB1 and CB2 receptors in a different way than THC. So it's very interesting in some of the arguments. Also lends to what I keep saying, that yes, there needs to be more exploration, because they want to look into isolates of the plant. I say why, when there's less addiction, there's less toxicity, and there's no deaths according to cannabis. Now, go look up go look up caffeine. It's still more addictive, it's more toxic, and it can kill you. It has a lethal death rate, or lethal death dose, and that's good cannabis. Thanks to my co-host, Chad Jacket, with some of the best weed. We've been missing you here, Chad.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you in on this dialogue. But this is some of the different stuff that we're covering, and we're going to be bringing live every week, where we're going to engage the audience. We have Dr. Paul Hornby coming on next week, and we'll have him in the house to be able to allow you guys to ask questions, ask whatever you'd like, and it'll be fielded out, of course, for relevant questions for a doctor. And if you have questions about some of his recent research, some of his past research, he's done so much in the cannabis culture. Tune in next week, Thursday, 5 o'clock, and that's when we'll be launching our first kind of live show where we can engage the audience. I mean, we're live now, but
I don't think there's anybody
really
watching.
engaging.
How many people have happened to tune in on the YouTube?
Control room, is anybody tuned in and watching us?
What? We got one person.
Viewer. Woo! Thank you, one viewer.
Is it somebody else that's in this area that's just watching it? There's 5.
Oh, we're 5. Call your friends and say, hey, we never announced it. We're just testing cannabis in Canada, because nobody knows. I didn't tweet this. I didn't put this out on any social media feeds.
Lucky.
But you know what? Caleb's really banging off some good stuff here.
You're lucky. I'm just rambling about economics.
But this is awesome, because this is what Cannabis in Canada is about.
Yeah.
Cannabis in the country of Canada.
Cannabis in the country, yeah. And all the implications of it.
Right. And how other laws, and as you said, in Allard, they brought in all these other experts from Israel, the Netherlands, to talk about their laws under their country. What the hell does that have to do with the Constitution of Canada or the right to liberty in this country?
But yeah, it's so funny that they did that, and then the federal government will just go ahead and say, "Oh, well, it's got no medicinal value," but then they argue it does in court. Yeah. Silly. Contradictory.
I brought that up as well. Legal discovery. And this, my friends, go to johnconroy.com. Read the government, especially Todd Kane. He's an expert witness for the government. Now, he was in charge of the transition. Read his affidavit and look at some of that information. There is some defining information in there about how all of this stuff was to work, and in some of the information provided as well by Janine Richet was the other one, and she provided all the medical evidence. And for the first words, cannabinoid, endogenous system. Wow, you mean you actually learned about that? That there's 400 plus compounds in the cannabis plant? You know, this is great. But as I've demonstrated before on this show, prior to 1942, it was in pharmacology, and doctors could reference what they're being asked to prescribe. And there's still an issue of the doctors being a gateway to the MMPR and the monopoly that's buying doctors and allowing them to go ahead and sell prescriptions. You know, right now they're giving them out, but the way that this is being done, well, other doctors like Dr. Cameron on the East Coast is being persecuted for doing the exact same thing under the MMAR that, in my own opinion, was written to fail. You wrote that program. You gave us no regulations really that were binding. You didn't have any investigations. You didn't come, properly regulate us.
They had no way to know how to best deal with a medical marijuana program.
Nor did they
Medical
try
cannabis.
though.
Yeah, they
like
didn't try.
2001.
Even if they wanted to try and do the best job they could, they couldn't because it was just a government central plant.
I mean, this is the thing. I hear them talking about, all these plant counts, all this, all that. My God, who wrote the formula? I mean, I'm a grower. I know what I need for me. To each their
Formula's
own.
ridiculous.
But honestly, who wrote the formula? You want to blame people? Blame yourselves, government. I can't remember which government was in charge when the MMAR was written. But hey, that's the government you can look
Probably
at
been liberal.
for who the hell wrote the formula. For why you have people out there growing 500 plants for themselves for personal use. And now with extracts being passed, it's going to be warranted. Just because of the sheer amount that you need to make the oil and to do edibles and properly dose yourself, especially for people like myself with HIV and those living with cancer and MS who have to control spasmodicity, nausea, and God knows a lot of pain daily in our lives. And I'm proud to say that still today, cannabis is the only drug I take aside from my antiretrovirals to stay alive. I'm proud to say that, because it's truly carried my life. It's why I defend it and why I mainly step up for patients. I 100% believe in legalization. I fight for my country. I'm a patriot to Canada. It's why we put them on trial. I hired John to put the federal government on trial, to restrain them. That was the issue. And we as a collective did that. The Cannabis Rights Coalition pulled this off, formerly known as the MMAR Coalition Against Repeal. As any natural group would evolve, this is just another thing that's happened. You've got a $250,000 case funded, a successful $70,000 injunction, a $40 million lawsuit, and boom, it's rolling. So the CRC Incorporated changed its name because, of course, we're not saving our gardens in the future, and we're not MMAR anymore because it's repealed. So that's some more stuff that you'll see reporting on, and we'll be definitely taking questions on. As people want to know questions, you want to talk to me, come on the show and ask me, because I'm not going to be hard to find, and I won't avoid questions.
That's right. It'll be right here. You won't
I'll
be
be
hard to
right
find.
here. I won't be hiding.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing about having a live show and making it as interactive as we can. But most importantly, we want to show you the volume of stories that we're covering, the different things that are involved, and some of the things that we're proud to say we've exposed and done by ourselves as independent media. And we're going to continue to do our best to bring that to you. Already we've demonstrated this with with our work leading up to where we are now. And most importantly, the work CinC did from 2007 to present. Those that don't understand, Cannabis in Canada was around before the Coalition. A lot of people think that I made Cannabis in Canada off the Coalition. It's all backwards. Look at my YouTube channel, watch the videos, you'll see it goes back to 2007. Cannabis in Canada was founded in 2010 as a nonprofit in British Columbia, then incorporated in 2015.
True story.
So that's the truth around Cannabis Canada. It was shelved in favor of the Coalition and the battle against Goliath, the federal government, which is now commenced. By that I mean all evidence is in. Trial's over. There's appeals, all they want. They can't add any new evidence. So in that sense, trial's
Their
over.
evidence sucks.
And their evidence totally sucks.
Seriously, you think for like over $1 million they'd do something better than what they did.
And spending $1 million, and this is the thing, we're going to keep reporting on these costs. I think R versus Smith will be the next one. We'll probably get the cost on that because, again, in that case, they're going to say, well, the lawyers kept pushing it through. Mr. Tusaw wanted to keep pushing it through as a constitutional challenge even after Owen was acquitted. But at the end of the day, it was the issue that babies in this country don't need to seizure and suffer because of an arbitrary law and faulty information that you, Rona, seem to claim there's no medical value when Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who I'm sure has a little more qualifications than you in relation to medical, has went on CNN and said, I have had a 180-degree turnaround. It's medical.
Yeah.
Challenge him too, Rona. You want fucking outrage? I'm outraged as a medical patient advocate, and man, I just can't say enough about what you represent. Not only for people with HIV, people with cancer, MS, whether they use cannabis or not, you're misinformed, and you've taken action that's costed Canadians millions and costed patients countless amounts of dollars in stress. If we could sue you for a policy change, unfortunately, you changed the law a few years ago that we can't do that, or people in your government changed the law, so we can't sue for damages. But that being said, we can continue to put our outrage and ask you to simply step down because you do not represent the medical patients of this country, and you failed to substantiate your case, as we're going to demonstrate in Allard. You know, to sit there and stand on the stage and say fire, mold, and organized crime existed for 36,000 of 41,000 patients who chose to grow or have somebody grow for them was wrong. No questions asked. And all this time later, I just can't get this out of my head that you would actually get up and do that and jeopardize your job. As much as you may not like cannabis or think there's no medical value, over 50% of the Canadians would disagree with you. And that's the unfortunate part. You don't look at the polls, you're not looking at the facts, and you're simply going on the fact that cannabis says there's no medical value. What do the doctors say? They need more exploration. Maybe talk to your boss and say, Harper, why don't you reinstitute funding so we can actually find out if there's medical value to cannabis? And stop calling it medical. I'm ranting again, ain't I? Well, they keep calling it medical, and then she says it has no medical value.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I not rant?
Yeah, it is pretty stupid. And you think, even the whole idea with extracts, too, like, it's so obvious that it's more beneficial than the actual dried plant. Like, you could, somebody who doesn't know anything about this, you could just take a bud to them and show them, like, rub off the trichomes, be like, see, that's what gets people high. And then be like, oh, okay, so that must be, you know, the medicinal benefits. So it's easy to show people that, and it's just so, her opinion is just so stupid.
Yeah. Well, let's think of some other stuff. Now, what do we got on the horizon for Cannabis in Canada? Because this is some of the stuff we've done. I mean, we've been all over the country. We've covered the Ottawa case. We are actually there to cover that. We're planning on doing a lot more. But what do we got coming here just now? What's the newest piece you're kind of working on that people can expect to see on the CannabisInCanada.ca website? My memory's blanking on what I just finished. Because I should know it. You just wrote it and you can't remember? I know, it's about... That's just Chad's good weed, that's all that is. I know, it's Chad's good weed. It just hit me like 20 minutes later. Unless it's only been like 4 minutes, man. No, I remember now. It was about capital. It was all about the LPs and the consequence of them having this like quasi-monopoly and the effects on like lines of production with capital having to abide by security measures rather than something else, and what it means in the economy. And just how, in a nutshell, how when they profit, the patients lose out because they have a quasi-monopoly. Economists would say that the demand curve is inelastic, so they could restrict output and actually raise prices and not lose out on profit. Whereas if you do that in a free market, if you raise the price too high, consumers are just going to go to your competitors. You're going to lose out on money. You're going to go bankrupt. Your prices are too high. It's not going to happen with the LPs. Are we not seeing this now, though? We're seeing that already only 17,000 people or some, or 20,000 people are accessing the MMPR. Is that sort of what we're seeing? Because in my own opinion, I would not personally, and I'll say this again, I will never pay an LP $10 a gram plus shipping and handling plus tax for anything, when I know that I can grow it now with LED technology for less than 10 cents, a gram. That is absolutely absurd. And for you guys to continue to do this to medical patients when there's no medical coverage is also wrong. But let's keep going on this, because this is important. I mean, the LP monopoly needs to be exposed. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that was that. Well, I guess that was pretty much it. I summed up. Oh, good way to go! We summed up the whole article in a few dozen words. Well, what's another one we're working on? Well, we've got Cannabis Day. For those that might not know, we may have heard that Vancouver City Council has decided, Vancouver has decided to send a letter to event organizers and ask them not to put on Cannabis Day, and this has been reported on. Shit. Well, it is. It is. It is. It's wrong, and they're threatening to put up a fence, and this is at such a high climax of history in the country of Canada in relation to cannabis, and for us not to look at this for the severity that it is, and even now, again, medical patients. We're talking 41,000 plus 17,000 in the MMPR. Also, what, less than 100,000 people are being served in Canada when over 1 million are estimated for medical marijuana users? I mean, it's still an issue for medical users, and it's still an issue for Canadians who shouldn't face arbitrary laws to a plant that is harmless, as we've demonstrated in Allard, and certainly doesn't spontaneously combust, doesn't collect mold, and has not been associated to organized crime. Therefore, my right to autonomy, and I believe every Canadian in this country should have that same right to grow that plant and heal themselves as they see fit. And you're nobody to step in the way, Mr. Government, nor your monopoly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I ranted again.
Yeah, you're going on rant. Well, if we've got 5 people watching, maybe
5 people. Woo!
Maybe somebody has.
Thank you to all 5 viewers. We are testing this tonight.
5 people.
We will be a little
Dude,
more professional
10.
and organized next time.
10 people.
10 people now. Okay, yeah. Woo.
One of those 10
Keep
people
promoting
have
us.
a question.
They will order you pizza.
Maybe they have a question, and then we'll
If you have any questions, ask us, and we'll get our control room to feed it through to us, and we'll be happy to
one
answer.
question. There's 11 people. Oh, come on.
Yeah, we got another person.
I'm breaking the fourth wall here and talking to people.
Well, maybe we should. What else are we going to talk about then? We got to cover
Talk
more.
about that ball. Can everyone see that ball there? It's a glass ball. But I feel just the need to kick it because it's a ball.
See, you know Caleb's medicated. Just for the record,
I was saying
Caleb's
this
out
all
here
day.
from Ontario recently. Well, not recently, but
almost like a year.
almost
now.
like a year.
Yeah.
So we're still kind of hardening him up to BC.
I wasn't
bud.
straight from Ontario. You're mischaracterizing me. I was all around. You guys found me.
All around. Well,
Where
Caleb was all
I?
around.
Oh, yeah, I guess I was.
But we
Ontario.
knocked him on his ass, and still continues to knock him on his ass sometimes. So that's what's funny. But that's good because
Sometimes.
we're just having fun at the end of a very.
Yeah.
It's 7:25 at night here, BC time, and we're just having fun testing out the equipment, but also letting you guys know this is what's coming. If you have questions, fire them away. We'll get them fed through to us, and there's not a problem with that. So, anyway, one of the other issues as we continue to look at the monopoly. I reported in 2012 that there would only be 51 licenses, LP licenses, in physical years 1 and 2, because the RIOS federal report, the backgrounder on the marijuana for medical purposes regulations, about 3,000-page document. Most people don't want to read. When you read into page 3,000 and something, you'll see where they say physical years 1 and 2, 51 licenses. Physical years 3 and 4, 10 more. So the lucky, I used to call them the fancy 50, but the lucky 61 permits projected in this report and on par with where we're at right now. Think about it. We're over 1 year into the program, and how many permits do we have? Just under 25. Right on par with that 51, aren't we? So
Yep.
again, the monopoly is here and it's in place. And I beg my friends in the cannabis industry, stand by your dispensaries, hold your ground, do what you need to do, but also understand what we're up against. What are you singing to?
I got stand by your dispensary.
Stand by your dispensaries?
Stand by your dispensary.
Caleb's going to sing a dispensary song. Go ahead, Caleb. Caleb likes to do karaoke, just so everyone knows.
Karaoke's fun. I couldn't do karaoke here though, unless they get. If we got karaoke, you could tune it up on the TV. I could do karaoke for you. You do
What-
White Rabbit. I like to do White Rabbit.
For our viewers who take the serious side of Caleb, now the serious side of Caleb
Right.
writes for Cannabis in Canada, writes for Press for Truth, does some fabulous stuff, and really gets into the nuts and bolts of the government. So maybe tell us a little more about some of the stuff that you've kind of discovered since working with Cannabis in Canada in relation to the stuff that I keep yapping about and ranting about, which is the monopoly that is being placed on Canadians.
Yeah, well, certainly. I do. Well, it's cool. Well, it's not cool. Let me start over. Where was I? Yeah, since being involved with CNC, because I was thinking, well, I'd heard of the MMPR since when it first announced back in 2012, way before I met you guys, and I was writing about it. That's probably how I ended up here, is because I was writing about it before I even met you guys. So I continued, and then I met up, and I continued writing and filming some back in the early days when I moved out here. I remember I filmed Budzilla with you the day after they were raided.
Yeah,
And
Reg.
so, yeah, I've
Reg.
learned
Shout out to
that,
Reg.
yeah.
Just hang
So,
on.
yeah.
Shout out to Reg. Reg at Budzilla. Got to give a shout
So
out.
to answer
Shout
your
out
question,
to MMJ.
Yeah, to answer your question, I guess what I've learned the most is that it's all about the supply chain here. If I'd just been in Ontario or somewhere else, I might have not realized that the whole legalization battle was about the supply model. I might have had some kind of inkling because just reading about medicinal stuff and realizing that all these farmers were being locked out of existence, and you were fighting with the injunction, and so I probably would have figured it out eventually, but I figured it a lot faster.
When did you fully understand my position? Because my fight, just so people understand, my issue with the MMPR was about Canadians. I seen a posturing that I don't know why, if I'm able to see things funny or whatever, but just like I said in 2012, I say now, there was a posturing to remove 36,000 gardens, citing public safety and personal danger to oneself. In essence, the one thing they need to strip you of your right to autonomy, to put into your body whatever you feel will medically help you, provided you're not a danger to yourself or anybody else. So they had to come out with this, and with that really hit us hard. I mean, that was where, shit, I just lost what I was talking about.
Yeah, I kind of sang over you. For a
Yeah,
little bit.
singing really just that trips
distract
me
you?
right out.
Yeah.
Your turn then. You feel this, man. There's people watching now.
I know, and I sometimes I blank on
Well,
what I
you
want to
started
say.
singing. Well,
I had
sing.
I got several things
Any
going
questions?
through my head at a time. There's stuff I want to talk about. There was an article I wrote for CinC that was actually rejected because it did get too radical. Because the idea was that, okay, well, we got a problem with the police. So the police are good with not busting dispensaries, but like there's other issues with having the police because it's the same lessons with like, can you imagine if all dispensaries were shut down except for one, and everybody had to use one dispensary, and it's the monopoly, right? Well, it's the same thing with police, right? Sure, they provide a service, but there's no competition, and you have to pay for it.
Well, think about this monopoly. Just like the thing that bothers me about the monopoly, and as you know, the word compliance. So again, the LP wannabes, if you have it, I'm sorry to call you that, but 1,200 people applied. There's only going to be 51 by this time next year, or around that area, because that's the projection. I'm sorry to break their bubble, but I've been saying this for 2 years. I'm not going to change. The only difference I see now is they're posturing up with their regulation of dispensaries. I would like to retitle that to implementation of clinic dispensaries.
Yeah, regulatory capture, because that's
Regulatory capture.
That's always
I like
what
that.
they keep talking about. The city council wants to know about supply. What about supply?
Right.
And they keep saying, well, we're not regulating the product, we're just regulating the business. And it's like, well, eventually supply is going to be the issue.
Yeah, after
And
a quarter
now,
million dollars is invested into your business.
LPs are the only legal supply.
And yeah, I mean, people say medical patients are their only legal supply, and this is what I have a problem with the city proposal and why I think it stinks. One, I had on this show here on Cannabis in Canada, I had Dana Larson, Jamie Shaw, and Don Breyer on here. And Jamie Shaw, being the head of the CMACD, represents all dispensaries. I asked her, was there any prior stakeholder advisory in relation to this city proposal? No, it shocked us all. We had none. Well, you know who was working with them? Tilray and various other LPs who openly said they were working with the city for 3 months in advance of that proposal being released. So you tell me who the real monopoly is. They may have used a different spelling in the language, and of course they said, hey, all 94 dispensaries get a chance. But what did they tell the 1,200 applicants? You all get a chance to be an LP if you meet compliance. And Caleb, you're so right, because that word compliance, with a strike of the pen, after you invest $35,000, you relocate most of your dispensaries, you get all heavily invested, then the city comes along and says, well, due to what we learned from the RCMP and everybody else and our, proper legal supply, we need you to comply with our regulation or shut down and face mandatory minimums under Bill C-10. And I guarantee you many will be filtered out. I'm going to predict this now. You will be filtered out by virtue of the monopoly. Unless the people can unite and stand together. I truly wish a coalition of dispensaries would form, because you guys need to get together and unite. The medical patients could raise $250,000 and stop the monopoly from taking our gardens. I believe we can stop the monopoly from taking our dispensaries. But we need to talk about it.
Yeah, need to have a discussion.
A real discussion.
A real open discussion. Because, it brings new light the fact that the mayor because it's like professional wrestling, right? Where it's they argue out front, but behind the scenes they're good friends with each other. So, not that the mayor of Vancouver is buddies with Rona Ambrose and Stephen Harper, but they're both part of the political class. They make their money the same way, and so it brings new light to the fact that the mayor is shutting down, or he wanted to kind of shut down Cannabis Day. Because already, I don't know. Does that make sense to you? What I'm saying here?
Yeah. Well, what I see is, at 420 there was 40,000 people, 45,000 people surrounding the art gallery, and that is the unity of BC. How do you divide a voice? Well, one, you screw up all the dispensaries and you make them fight each other and pissed off at each other as certain people get into the lottery and others don't. That's creating the problem. Offering the solution is going to public hearing. Creating the problem is going to public hearing. And saying, hey, there's 94 dispensaries. What are we going to do about it?
Oh, that was so wrong. There were like 200 people. It went on for days.
I know.
That was terrible.
and it's still going. I mean, I believe the next speakers are still...
And you think there's our tax money at work.
Yeah.
As opposed to some kind of regulatory industry that makes money by regulating businesses the way consumers and producers all agree to. It's voluntary exchange. Everybody would win. Instead, we're just going to do this bureaucratic regulatory, which is going to be capture the LPs, take over. And that's what I think I was getting at before. Was the mayor pretends to be anti-Harper, and he's like, oh, we're going to regulate dispensaries because we're pro cannabis, and we're going to. But then he wants to shut down Cannabis Day, and the regulatory dispensaries in Vancouver will be eventually LP weed. So in reality, behind the scenes, he's really kind of working with the federal government, even if it's not shaking hands behind doors. It's kind of this implicit kind of nod of the head, like, yep, LPs are the way to go. MMPR.
We have to ask ourselves, why does Ontario not have any banning of dispensaries, any regulations?
Yeah.
And here they want to regulate dispensaries that don't exist in Calgary. I say implementation, and now here in BC, again, the what's there as a regulatory reform is no guarantee. They say all 94 people are in the lottery. They don't say how many are going to win in the lottery. They don't say how it's going to exactly work. The proposal is very broad. There's some broad brush strokes like the safe. Mm-hmm. Like whether you need a safe. What does a safe mean?
Yeah.
Do you have to store your cannabis in the safe? LPs sure as hell learned what a safe means, didn't you? I know you guys learned what it means. Hell of a lot of money is what it means.
Yeah.
So security, all that's in that proposal. Security is a broad brushstroke. What do we learn about security in relation to storing cannabis for LPs? No, I'm not saying it's going to be the same level of compliance, but it's still going to be.
It couldn't be. They would knock everybody out.
It would knock everybody out.
People are mad about a $30,000 licensing fee.
Well, that's what I mean. This is
one of the LPs that just backed
stuff
out of the Health Canada thing. They were $20,000 a month, just like trying to get everything together, just being in compliance with Health Canada.
Yeah.
$20,000. Like, that's the problem with this MMPR is that, okay, like they could say, oh well, all the old MMAR growers, they could just go become LPs. Well, not really, because it would be firms with less capital, and this corporation that just backed out of becoming an LP, $20,000 a month is considered that would be a firm with not a lot of capital.
Like the coalition and myself, we're patients that have never fought for the issue of redistribution. We fought for the issue of right to our own growing. And that's the one thing where they want to keep saying that it's being backdoored. Is right now dispensaries are saying we're getting our supply from the MMAR. You know why? Because the MMAR is under injunction, but it technically is a legal supply, but it's only a legal supply for individuals. That's the second part of the sentence that they're leaving out. Yeah. And it's what scares me. And again, my friends, check out cannabiscanada.ca. Well, do you remember the title of the map?
The map one. Well, I think it's still on that front page.
There's an exclusion map. You'll see all the dots. Take a look at it. It was professionally done. It was properly vetted. It hasn't been challenged yet. It's been on social media for some time. It's been unchallenged. Have a look at it and decide for yourself what's going on. Now, a lot of people don't like to hear this, and I know I don't like to hear it myself. As a medical patient activist, I would love to see nothing more than a free and fair market in Canada. That's why I fight for it. But you've picked the fights you can win. You don't play into their hands. This public hearing, every medical patient that went and told their stories of love for their dispensaries, that's awesome. because it shows how much of a need there is. But it plays into the LP's hand for why they need the legal supply and the quality assurance and all the other crap they've been selling to the general public to justify their clinics. This is like a big game of Monopoly. Fucking, it bothers me because now I'm reporting on it. See, I'm not nearly as mad. I'm more frustrated about the people who are suffering and my friends invested directly in dispensaries. Man, I don't know what else to say.
It's a lot like the game of Monopoly, because like the game of Monopoly, at the money that we're using at the end of the day, the money that we're using is the same thing. It's the only difference is the value you're assigning to it. It's paper.
Well, that's the whole thing. And I say this as well. All these dispensaries, a lot of people forget, as of April 1st, 2014, April Fool's Day, everybody, there is a legal supply in Canada called LPs.
Yeah.
Which means they have the right to supply Canada and dispense it, not you. That's the only problem. Now, I agree with you. Believe me, I'm with you. I will supply medical patients myself. I'm with you guys 100%. I just believe that I don't want to see my friends waste a lot of money just to get cut loose, like many of the people, the 1,200 LP applicants have been cut loose. Like Caleb suggested 20,000. I know ones who've been cut loose after 500, 700,000. And they're running from their investors. They've lost their houses, their wives, all because of a promise to comply.
Yeah.
I watch out for that language, my friends. It's open-ended. You tell me what compliance means. You can tell me what compliance means. Well, it means what's in the regulations. Well, the regulations say if you meet compliance. That's all. So look into it. That's all I can say. Because I'm not invested in a dispensary. I don't resell my weed. I don't worry about that. So it doesn't really affect me. But for the patients who need access to these dispensaries, God damn it, stand our ground. Make sure you speak out. But understand that when we speak of the need for these dispensaries, we also have to speak of the need for the frontline service, the ability to touch the cannabis, the ability to smell it, and the ability to get proper information on who grew it. That's the difference between a goddamn LCD to screen and a mail order system. Not to mention, none of us like the issue that cannabis goes in the mail. The judge didn't like it. Nobody likes it.
Yeah. Yep. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes the MMPR.
Do we still have no questions? How many people are even watching? Should we just call this a
Should we just
dead
wrap
test?
it up? That's the lesson.
That's
Nobody
the
likes the
test
MMPR.
is over.
Screw the MMPR. Screw it. Screw it.
16. Okay, we got to keep
people.
going then. Okay, 16 people. Thank you. Woo. Oh, we got to wrap
16
it.
people.
Okay,
quit.
well, 16 people who did come on.
Leave
Thank
on
you.
a high note.
Because we
Tell
didn't,
a joke.
we didn't. Yeah, tell a joke. You're good at jokes.
My foot fell asleep, so it's gonna be up all night. That's how I get
He
restless
did throw the
leg
pillows.
syndrome.
Caleb likes to throw pillows. He said, "I'm going to throw the pillows when the show
Screw the
starts."
MMPR. Screw it.
This is Jason Wilcox. We're going to see you next week live here where we will take your questions. We will engage the audience and we'll be promoting Dr. Paul Hornby on the show here on a serious note, talking cannabis and cannabinoids.
There will be no throwing pillows.
And no throwing pillows. And my co-host Chad Jacket will be in the house
He won't throw pillows either.
here on the screen. And yeah, we'll see you then. Cheers.
I'm gonna kick that ball too. I'm gonna kick it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again. I must reserve every bit of credit that I can. But we have a wonderful show for you tonight. I know you're going to enjoy it.
Cannabis and Canada.